Today I'm going to show you how to crochet Tina the Triceratops. So the pattern calls for DK weight yarn and takes approximately 20 grams in lilac and 4 in purple. You're also going to need a 2.2mm hook and a pair of 6mm safety eyes in addition to your normal crochet items like yarn needles, stitch markers, embroidery floss, and stuffing. However, the gauge doesn't really matter that much. You can use any size yarn and matching hook size as long as you adjust the yardage of yarn accordingly. If you're using a larger weight yarn and larger hook size, you'll end up using a bit more yarn. So for today's tutorial, I am using DK weight yarn, but I sized up to a 3mm hook for comfort. So let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are getting started on the head and body of Tina the Triceratops, and we're going to be using color A, which is sort of this lighter purple color for me. And the first thing we need to do is get a magic ring formed. So let's do a quick review on how to tie a magic ring, and then how to make our first few single crochet stitches inside. Alright, so let's review how to form a magic ring. So we're going to start by taking a little length of our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration. Make sure you're using the correct color for the pattern that you are following along with. So I'm going to take this white, and I'm going to reserve myself a little bit of a tail. So I'm going to take the end of that yarn, and I'm going to stretch it so I've got about 5 inches or so of a tail. And the tail is going to be the end that is not attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got about 5 inches or so reserved of that tail, we're going to take our yarn hand. For me, that's my left hand, but if you're a left-handed crocheter, this might be your right hand. But we're going to take our yarn hand and make a bit of a finger guns here. So my index and my middle finger, I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to be looking at the inside of them. Then I'm going to take that tail that I've reserved, that 5 inches, and I'm going to lay it so that it's over the lower digit on my index and my middle. And then I'll take my thumb and I'm going to press the yarn to those 2 fingers. Then I'm going to take my hook hand, which is for me my right hand, but could be your left hand, and I'm going to grab the working yarn. Once I've got that grabbed, I'll take it and I'm going to wrap it around the back side of my index and my middle finger so that it's sort of close to that top digit. I'll flip my hand over so you can see. So I want it to be close to my top digit, so you can see it's closer to the 2 tops of my fingers here. So we're going to wrap that around, and then once we've got it around the top digit of those 2 fingers, we're going to bring it so that it goes behind our thumb again. So I use my thumb and I pinch that second wrap in place. Then we're going to keep wrapping, this time going around the lower digit on our 2 fingers. So I'll flip my hand over so you can see these 2 wraps here. This is that one I just made, going around that lower digit. So we'll wrap around that lower digit, and then we're going to take our working yarn and one more time snug it behind our thumb, and then just pull it out of our way. So once we've done that, we should have 2 wraps and this sort of X shape on the insides of our hands. So once we have all of the yarn wrapped around our yarn hand here, we're ready to take our crochet hook in our hook hand, and we're going to flip our yarn hand over so that we're looking at the back side of our fingers. So we should have 2 wraps, one around the top digit, one around the lower digit on our yarn hand. We're going to take our hook and slip it underneath that top wrap, and then use the hook part to snag that lower wrap and bring it underneath the top wrap. Then we're going to take both of our hands and we're going to flip them over so that we're looking at the inside and away from our body. So I'm flipping out and away from my body. And then I'm going to bring my 2 hands together, so my yarn hand and my hook hand. I'm going to bring them so the index finger here on my hook hand can touch the back side of my yarn hand. Then using the thumb and index finger of my hook hand, I'm going to grab both the wrap on my hook and the wrap still on my fingers right where they meet. So I'm going to kind of snag the 2 of them together right there. Once I've got those pinched between my thumb and index finger on my hook hand, I can let go with my thumb and then gently slide those wraps off of my index and middle finger. So now that I've done that, let's locate both the tail, that's the end that's no longer attached to our ball of yarn, so it's got this blunt cut end on it. And we're going to kind of pull that over into the 12 o'clock position, so kind of up and away. And then let's locate the working yarn. That's the stuff still attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got those two identified, we're going to take the working yarn and begin tensioning it. So to do that, we'll take our index finger on our yarn hand. That for me is my left hand. Could be your right hand for you if you're a left-handed crocheter. And we're going to slip the working yarn over the top of our index finger. Then we'll take our middle, ring, and pinky finger on our yarn hand, and we're going to wrap those around that working yarn. Once you've done that, we also need to sandwich this working yarn in between our magic ring and our tail. So to do that, I like to take my middle finger and thumb on my yarn hand, and I'm going to grab that tail with my middle finger here. And then with my thumb, I want to grab the ring. So we don't want to grab our working yarn, which is kind of going in through that ring. We want to just get the bottom end of the ring here. And once you've got those two, we're going to kind of pinch them together. And you can see that sandwiches our working yarn in between the two of them. Once we've got those grabbed with our yarn hand, we can let go with our index and thumb on our hook hand. And the ring here that's on our hook is really loose. We'll tighten that by pulling our index finger up and away. You can see how that tightens that yarn. And then once we've done that, we're ready to yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. So we'll take our hook, put the yarn over our hook, so I kind of just swing around the back side there and grab it. And we're going to pull that working yarn directly through the loop on our hook. Once we've done that, you can let go. It's not going to come undone. It won't come untied, which is very comforting because we've spent all this time creating it. The last thing we need to do before we're ready to begin is we're going to take the tail, and you can see it's threaded through our magic ring. We're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it out from the center of that ring. And from here, we're ready to begin working in the magic ring. We also need to work over the tail as well. So we'll take that ring and we'll take the tail and we're going to set them together so that we are working over both of these strands, the ring and the tail. All right, you are ready to go ahead and continue on in your pattern. Okay, so now that we have our magic ring formed, we're ready to start in on round 1, and we need to put 4 single crochet stitches inside of our magic ring. So we're going to be working both in the ring itself and over the tail that we use to tie the ring. So I like to hold the two together over here in my yarn hand with my middle finger and my thumb so that they're both right next to each other and they're easy to work over. So to make our first single crochet stitch, we're going to start by holding the loop here on our hook with our index finger in our hook hand, and then take our hook and go through this magic ring and under the tail. And then we're going to yarn under, and I like to kind of swing my hook around and grab my working yarn and pull it through that ring and up into a nice tall loop here on my hook, and then yarn over and draw through both of the loops left on my crochet hook to finish that first single crochet stitch. Then we're going to want to mark that stitch as well. So we'll take our stitch marker and slip it underneath both sides, the front and the back loop of that little V shape at the top of our stitch, and then lock it into place. So that's that first single crochet stitch. We need to add 3 more, and we'll go the same way we just did. Hold on to that loop, go through your ring, yarn under and draw up a loop, and then yarn over and draw through both. So there's that second single crochet stitch. There's the third and fourth. Alright, so that's all 4 single crochet stitches for round 1. We're ready to do the magic ring part, and we're going to pull the tail of the magic ring to close off round 1. Alright, so we are ready for round 2, and we've got some parentheses here with instructions inside, and those are telling us that we need to repeat everything in the parentheses in the order that they appear inside, the amount of times outside of the parentheses. So we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of our round, so I'll take that stitch marker out, and we're going to slip our hook through the front and the back loop that we had marked from the first stitch in round 1. Yarn under and draw through that stitch, then yarn over and draw through both loops. And that is our first single crochet stitch, so we're going to mark that. And the first part of our instructions, and then the next part of our instructions tell us we need to do an INC, which means an increase. So in our second stitch of the round, we're going to place 2 single crochet stitches inside. So we'll go through that next stitch, yarn under and draw up a loop, and yarn over and draw through both, and then make another stitch in that same place, the same stitch from the previous round. And that is 1 repetition of those parentheses. We need to do that a second time. So in the next stitch of our round, the third stitch from round 1, we'll put 1 single crochet stitch. And in the last stitch of the round, we'll place another increase. So 2 single crochet stitches in the same place. And you may notice your work's kind of starting to bowl facing towards you, like the work is kind of rolling into like a cup shape. We want to encourage the work to roll outwards. We want the place where our magic ring tail is to be on the inside. So kind of push your fingers along. We're making the tail here. Alright, so that's round 2 done. Then for round 3, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So here's my first single crochet stitch. And we're always going to mark that first stitch of the round because it tells us when our round's over. So don't forget to put that stitch marker back in place. And we're just going to be adding 1 single crochet stitch to every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 3 done for me. I'm ready for round 4. We're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. So here's my first single crochet stitch. So there's that first one. Here's my second single crochet stitch. Then we need to make 2 increases back to back. So 1 increase in the next stitch, and then an increase in the stitch right after. Alright, and then 2 single crochet stitches, 1 in the 2 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, that is round 4 done. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and give the magic ring tail a trim. We're going to trim it short, but not all the way off. And you can discard or reuse as stuffing that tail that we just trimmed. Alright, so we're ready for round 5, starting off with 2 single crochet stitches, 1 in the next 2 stitches. So here's my first. And my second. And then we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat here, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch, and then 1 increase right after. And we're going to repeat that a second time, so 2 repetitions of that parentheses, 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the 2 remaining stitches of the round. And that wraps up round 5, ready for round 6, starting with 2 single crochet stitches. Then a new parentheses pattern, 2 single crochet stitches, and then our increase. So here's that first repetition. I'm going to do that a second time, so 2 single crochet stitches, increase, then we'll end the round with 2 single crochet stitches. Okay, that's round 6 done, ready for round 7. Again, starting with 2 single crochet stitches. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches. And then an increase. And we'll do that a second time, probably starting to pick up on the pattern here. 3 single crochet stitches, and then an increase. Alright, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the 2 remaining stitches of the round. Okay, that's round 7 done, ready for round 8, starting with 2 single crochet stitches. So there's my first and my second. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. Then an increase. And repeat that a second time. And then end the round with 2 single crochet stitches. And that's round 8 done. Round 9, starting with 2 single crochet stitches. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches. And an increase. Then repeat that a second time, 5 single crochet stitches. And an increase. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the last 2 stitches of the round. And that's round 9 done, ready for round 10. Just 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around for round 10. Okay, that's round 10 done for me. I'm ready for round 11, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of the round. Alright, there are those 8 single crochet stitches. Then we have 6 increases that we need to make back to back. So the next 6 stitches, increasing in each Alright, there are my 6 increases, then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. Alright, that's round 11 done, then round 12, 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches, just like with round 11. Right, there are those 8 single crochet stitches, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch, followed by an increase. And we're going to repeat that pattern, 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, 5 more times. Alright, so there's that last repetition for me, and then we'll end the round with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. Okay, that's round 12, so rounds 13 through 16, so rounds 13, 14, 15, and 16. We have a multi-round repeat, which means we need to just do 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch for every single one of those rounds. So my advice is, as you start the round, take your marker out, place your first single crochet stitch. So here I am with the first stitch of round 13, and then immediately put your stitch marker back in, so you don't forget to mark the round and then lose track of where you are on your multi-round repeat. Alright, so I'm starting in on round 13 here, and I will see you back whenever I have round 16 done, and we are ready to move on to the new instructions for round 17. Okay, so that was my last single crochet stitch in round 16, and I'm ready to move on to round 17. We're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first 8 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those first 8 single crochet stitches. Then we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round, and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that pattern 5 more times for a total of 6 repetitions. Alright, so that was my last repetition. I've got 1 single crochet stitch to place in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. Okay, that's round 17 done. Ready for round 18, just 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 18 done. Ready for round 19. 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of the round. Right, there are those first 8 single crochet stitches. Then we've got a new parentheses pattern to repeat, 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round, followed by 1 increase. And I've just done that once, so I'm going to keep repeating that 6 times total. Alright, so there's that last increase for me, then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. And that's round 19 done. Ready for another multi-round repeat here for rounds 20 through 23. Same advice I gave before, make your first single crochet stitch. Then immediately place your stitch marker back in to help you keep track of where you are in your round. So I will see you back here whenever I have the last single crochet stitch for round 23, and we're ready to move on to round 24 together. Alright, so I just finished that last single crochet stitch of round 23, and before we move on to round 24, now is a good time to start stuffing the body because we're going to begin decreasing. It's going to be really hard to get down to the tip of the tail if we wait any longer. So let's go ahead and pull the loop on our crochet hook up long, and then take our hook out. And we're going to get some stuffing sent all the way down to the tip of the tail. So start with just a pinch and use your finger to kind of push it all the way down. I'm going to use the end of my hook here to tuck it into the tip of the tail. And we're just going to keep adding pinches of stuffing. Okay, so I've got the tip of the tail stuffed and I have a little stuffing on the inside of the body here. We're going to continue stuffing as we go though, so don't overstuff this section. We'll add more as we keep working around. Alright, so we can take our crochet hook and we can go back through that loop and then draw our working yarn down to tighten that loop onto our hook. And we're ready for round 24. So round 24, we're going to start off by putting one single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those 8 single crochet stitches. Then we've got a parentheses pattern and a new kind of stitch we haven't done yet in this project so far. We're going to start with 3 single crochet stitches. And then we have a DEC or a decrease. So to do our decrease, we're going to go through our next stitch, yarn under just like we normally would, and draw a loop up. And then we're going to do that same thing in the stitch right after. So go through, yarn under, and draw a loop up. Then yarn over and draw through all 3 loops, which takes those 2 stitches we drew loops through and decreases them down into 1 stitch for the next round. So we're going to repeat that pattern of 3 single crochet stitches, decrease 6 times total. So here's that second repetition. Let's do a decrease again together just to kind of practice going through, yarning under and drawing up a loop, then going through the next stitch, yarning under and drawing up a loop, then yarning over and drawing through all 3. That's my second repetition. I'm going to keep repeating that 6 times total. Alright, so there's that last repetition for me, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the 4 remaining stitches of the round. And that wraps up round 24. Ready for round 25, just 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 25 done for me. Ready for round 26, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those 8 single crochet stitches, then another parentheses pattern to repeat 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches, and then a decrease. And we're going to repeat that 6 times total. Alright, there's that last repetition for me, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. And then before we move on to round 27, now is a good time to add a little more stuffing. Alright, so I've got a little more stuffing added, and I'm ready for round 27. Just 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 27 done for me. Round 28, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches of the round. Right, there are those 8 single crochet stitches, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round, and then 1 decrease. And repeat that pattern 6 times total. Alright, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. And that's round 28 done. Ready for round 29, just 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 29 done. Before I make round 20, I'm going to add a little more stuffing to the inside of the body here. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull that loop long and really stuff the inside of the body here. Alright, so there's some stuffing added. I'm going to go ahead and put my hook back through that loop and pull my working yarn to tighten it. And we're ready for round 30. We've got a parentheses pattern to repeat here. 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then a decrease. And we're going to repeat that 6 times total. So 5 more times for me. Alright, that's round 30 done for me. Ready for round 31. 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, so that's round 31 done. Ready for round 32. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches. And then an increase. Then we're going to repeat that 6 times total. So 2 single crochet stitches, increase. Alright, so that's round 32 done. I'm ready for round 33. Just 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 33 done for me. Ready for round 34. 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. And then an increase. And repeat that 6 times total, so another 5 times for me. Alright, that's round 34 done. Then rounds 35 and 36, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So I'll catch you back here at the end of round 36 when we're ready to move on to round 37 together. Alright, so that's the last single crochet stitch of round 36 for me. I'm going to stop and add a little more stuffing to the inside of the body at this point. Alright, and I'm ready for round 37. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. And then increase in the next stitch. And then repeat that pattern 6 times total. Alright, that's round 37 done. Round 38, just 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 38 done for me. Ready for round 39. I'm going to start with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 16 stitches of the round. Alright, there are those 16 stitches. Then we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat. 1 single crochet stitch followed by 1 decrease. And we're going to repeat that 6 times total, so 5 more times for me. Alright, there's that last repetition for me, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. Alright, let's add a little more stuffing. So I'm going to pull my hook out of my work here. Alright, so now that we have a little more stuffing and our hook is already out, let's take this time to go ahead and place the safety eyes. So first we want to make sure that they are in the correct spot. So our dinosaur's body kind of has this flat side to it and a little curve along the back. So we want this flat side to be facing down. So go ahead, I like to kind of smash that against my work surface here so I can make sure I have the right spot. And then we can take our safety eyes and they're going to go in between the round we just created and the round right before it. And they're about 11 stitches apart. So I'm going to go ahead and place my first eye here. I'm going to put it on the side of the head. Just push it right through the fabric. And they're 11 stitches apart, so let's count. I'm going to go around the underside here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I think I want my eyes to be a little further apart. So I'm going to scoot mine maybe 15 stitches across. And then double check that I like the positioning on them. That looks pretty good to me, kind of just going from side to side, making sure I like where they're placed. And then once you're happy with where they are, you can push the backs onto the back of the eye to lock them in place. Alright, and that is the safety eyes attached, so we're ready to move on in our pattern. Can put our hook back through that loop we drew long, drop back down, and we're ready for round 40. Starting with one single crochet stitch in the first 3 stitches of the round. So there's the first 3 stitches, then a decrease. And we're going to repeat that pattern 6 times total, so another 5 times for me. Alright, that's round 40 done for me. Ready for round 41. One single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then a decrease, and then repeat that pattern, 2 single crochet stitches, decrease, 5 times more for me, 6 times total. Okay, that's round 41 done for me. Before I move on to rounds 42 through 44, that multi-round repeat, I'm going to add some more stuffing to the inside of the head here, especially now that we have the safety eyes placed. And when you add stuffing around the safety eyes, be careful you don't push the stems on the inside at an angle because it will change the angle of the eyes on the surface. Alright, so there is the head stuffed. I'm ready to move on to rounds 42 through 44. Just one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around for these rounds. So I'll catch you back here at the end of round 44 when we're ready to move on to the last round of the body and the head. Alright, so there's that last single crochet stitch of round 44, and I'm ready for round 45, which is my last round here. I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then one decrease, and then repeat that another 6, and then repeat that 5 more times for me, but 6 times total. One single crochet stitch, decrease. Alright, so there's that last decrease, and we're ready to fasten off. So we're going to take our stitch marker out and place a slip stitch in the stitch it was just in. So we're going to go through and yarn under, draw up a loop, and then draw that loop through the only loop left on our hook. Then we need a short tail to sew with, so 6 to 8 inches should be plenty here at the end of our project. And then pull until that tail passes through the slip stitch that we made, and then tighten it down. Then before we sew this last round closed, let's add just a little bit more stuffing to the inside of the head here. Alright, so there is the last bit of stuffing there on the head added. Let's go ahead and close this last round off. We'll take this tail that we've cut and we need to get it threaded through the eye of our needle. Then we're going to sew through each of the front loops left from that last round of decreases that we did. So when we crochet, we've been going through both the front and the back loop. You can see I have them both here on my embroidery needle. But we need to get just the front loop for this round, so we're going to send our needle up between those two stitches, snagging just the front loop, rotate, sew through the next stitch's front loop, keep rotating and sewing through. We're going to sew through each of these 12 decreases, each of these 12 stitches front loops. Alright, so when you've sewn through all of those front loops, you can pull gently to close this first round off. And then we need to secure that closing that we have here. So we're going to tie a surface knot / French knot. So we're going to take that little tail that we've been sewing with and make like a little loop here over the surface of our work. Then grab some of the fabric of our work. I'm going to get that last stitch that I sewed through. And then on your way up through the fabric, sew up through that loop that you've made. And you can see that loop's going to just wrap itself around the tail. And we'll pull to tie a knot. And then weave this in by sewing it in through the center of that cinched round. And then to the inside of the head. And pull to send that knot to the inside. And we're going to be covering up this round here with a horn here at the front. So it may look a little disorganized now, but I'm going to keep weaving my tail in. I want it to be really secure. So I'm going to just go in and out of the fabric a couple of times. Then when I'm happy with the amount of tail that I've woven in, I can unthread my needle and trim. And that is the head and the body done, so we can move on to the next part of our pattern. Okay, so next up we need to make the front horn. We're going to be using color B, which is sort of this darker colored purple for me. And we need to begin with another magic ring. Alright, so now that I have my magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1. We're going to put 4 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, so there are those 4 single crochet stitches. I'm going to pull the tail of the magic ring to close off round 1. And I'm ready for round 2. We're going to put 1 increase in the first stitch of the round. And then mark. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 3 stitches of the round. Okay, that's round 2 done. Then rounds 3, 4, and 5, we're doing basically the same thing. We're going to be increasing in that first stitch of the round, and then putting 1 single crochet stitch in all of the remaining stitches of the round. So here is round 3, there's that increase, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. That was round 3. Here's round 4. 1 increase in the first stitch of the round. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the 5 remaining stitches of the round. that's round 4 and round 5. 1 increase in the first stitch of the round. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the 6 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, so that's round 5 done for me, and I'm ready to fasten off. I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and then cut a long tail, because I'm going to be using this tail to sew the horn to the head. So 12 inches should be plenty. And then we're going to pull until the tail we cut passes through that slip stitch we made, and tighten it down. Now is also a good time to give the magic ring tail a bit of a trim. Alright, and that is the horn crocheted. I'm going to add just a little pinch of stuffing to the inside of mine. Alright, so there's the horn stuffed, and then we are ready to get it attached to the front of the body. So we're going to go ahead and weave that tail that we left through our needle. And then the horn's going to go on the front right over where that round that we sewed through is. And we're just going to sew it on by sewing through some of the stitches of the body and then coming up through one of those last rounds stitches on the horn. And we're just going to work our way around attaching these two together. Alright, so I have sewn all the way around and the horn is now attached to the front of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot to secure all those stitches. So I'm going to make another surface knot like I did when I closed the head off. Sew up through some of the fabric up the horn and tie a little knot. And then weave this so that it goes into the fabric of the head. Just going to pull that knot to the inside. And then I'm just going to weave the tail in a few more times to make sure it's really secure. Then I can trim. And that is the front horn attached to the body. Alright, so next up we need to make the ears, and we need to make 2, so I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then you'll need to come back, make a second, and we can get them attached. Starting with another magic ring here in our color B. Alright, so now that I have that magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1. I'm going to put 4 single crochet stitches inside of the magic ring. Alright, so there's those 4 single crochet stitches in my magic ring. I'm going to pull the tail to close off that first round. And I'm ready for round 2. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. And then 1 increase. And then I'm going to repeat that a second time. So 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round and an increase in the second stitch. Alright, that's round 2, and I'm ready for round 3, which is the last round here of the ear. Starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round, followed by an increase, and we'll repeat that a second time. So 2 single crochet stitches, increase, Alright, and that is the ear done. We can fasten off by slip stitching and then reserving a long tail to sew with. 6 to 12 inches should be plenty. Then pull until that tail passes through the slip stitch that we formed and tighten. I'm also going to trim the magic ringtail. And that is one of the ears. Let's make a second and then we can get them attached to the body. Alright, so I have both of my ears crocheted and I'm ready to attach them to the body. So I'm going to go ahead and thread the eye of my tapestry needle here with one of those ears. And then we're going to attach them to the top of the head and kind of angled back a little bit. And I'm going to make mine so that they're a little more inset than the eyes. So I'm setting them on kind of close to where the neck is. And we're going to attach them on the same way that we attached the horn to the front of the head. We'll grab some of the fabric of the head itself and sew up through one of the stitches from that last round. And then we're just going to work our way around, sewing through each one of those stitches, really attaching it to the head as securely as we can. Alright, so once you've sewn all the way around and the ear is attached, we can fasten off the same way we did with the horn and the front of the head. We're just going to tie another surface knot here. And then weave that tail into the fabric of the body and the head. And I'm going to weave mine through a couple of times just so it's extra secure. And then trim. And that is the first ear attached. We need to repeat with the other ear on the other side. Alright, so next up we need to make the spots, and there's 2 of them and they're both a little different in size. So we're starting with our first spot with our color B. And we're going to begin with another magic ring. And then for round 1, we're going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of the magic ring. Alright, so there are those 6 single crochet stitches. I'm going to go ahead and pull the tail. And we're ready for round 2. We're going to increase in each stitch all the way around. Alright, so I have all 12 of those stitches. I'm ready to fasten off. I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch from round 2, reserve myself a long tail to sew with, trim, and then pull until that tail passes through my slip stitch and tighten. I'm also going to go ahead and give my magic ring tail a trim here. And there is our first spot done. So let's make our second spot, again working with color B. Forming a second magic ring. And actually this one's going to be the smaller spot here. So let's go ahead and make our first and only round for our smaller and second spot. We're going to put 8 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, so once you have all 8 single crochet stitches, you can pull that tail, and we're ready to fasten off. We're just going to slip stitch straight into the first single crochet stitch that we made, and then leave yourself another long tail to sew with, and pull that tail until it passes through the slip stitch and tighten. And just like with the first spot, trim that magic ring tail short. And we are ready to get these spots attached now. So I'm going to attach them so that my Triceratops is kind of facing over here to the right. And the first one's going to kind of go closer to the top and inside of the body. And then our second one's going to kind of angle along the bottom side here. So we're going to be using the tails from both spots to sew the spots on. So let me go ahead and get my tapestry needle threaded with that tail. And just like we did with the horns and the ears, we're going to just go around and sew through each of the last round's single crochet stitches grabbing some of the fabric from the body as we work, and we're just going to sew each of the spots on. So just work your way around. Alright, so once you've sewn all the way around, just like we've done with everything we've sewn so far, tie a little surface knot to secure all the stitches that you've made, and then weave that tail into the body itself, and out through any old stitch, doesn't really matter where, and weave the tail in maybe a second time just to make sure it's extra secure, and then trim. So there's that first spot attached. We're going to do the exact same thing with our second spot, just attaching it that same way. Alright, so next up we need to crochet the mane, and we're going to be starting by making a slip knot and chaining some stitches with color A. So let's do a quick review on how to get a slip knot tied and how to make our first few chain stitches. Alright, so let's review how to tie a slip knot and how to form a chain stitch. So we're going to take our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration, so just double check you're using the correct color from your pattern. And we're going to reserve ourselves a little bit of a tail, just like we do with our magic ring. So I'm going to take maybe 5 or 6 inches or so of my working yarn here, make myself a little tail, and then we're going to take that tail and we're going to wrap it behind our working yarn. So we're sort of making like a lowercase letter B. So once we've got that wrapped around, we formed this loop here. We're going to kind of sandwich the working yarn with the tail. So bring it back around and kind of cross it over that loop. Sort of like a pretzel twist. Then when we've done that, what we need to do is draw this twist that we've just done, that strand, through this loop without pulling the tail all the way through, because that would just tie a knot. So I take my hook hand, which is my right hand, and I grab what I've laid over that loop and pull it, and then with my other hand I grab my working yarn and then pull the loop through. And the reason I form my slip knots this way is because they tighten when you pull on the tail, but not when you pull on the working yarn. It won't tighten while you're trying to add stitches to it. So once you've got that slip knot formed, you're going to take your hook and slip it inside of the slip knot, and then pull the tail to tighten it into a loop down onto your hook. Then you're ready to begin tensioning by laying the working yarn over your yarn index finger. So for me that's my left index finger. And then wrapping the rest of your fingers around our working yarn. And then I like to hold on to the slip knot itself with my middle and thumb on my yarn hand. And then we're ready to form a chain. So to chain, we'll take our hook and we're going to yarn over, meaning we're going to put the yarn over our hook, and then draw the working yarn through the slip knot we tied, and then pull up to form a nice tall loop. So that's our first chain. To continue chaining, we're going to just keep yarning over and drawing a nice tall loop through each time. One final thing though, the loop on your hook, as I'm sure I may have mentioned in the video before, that doesn't count as a stitch. This is sort of like a stitch in progress. So right now I have 2 chain stitches formed. I'll yarn over and draw another stitch through. That'll be 3, 4. And as you add chain stitches, I tend to move my middle and my thumb up closer to my hook to help me sort of tension my yarn a little easier. So as I chain, I just keep shifting my hand down the stitches that I've just created. Alright, so that's how you tie a slip knot and chain. Alright, so now that we've done a quick review, let's go ahead and get started on round 1. First we need to chain 21 stitches. Alright, so there are those 21 stitches, and then we are going to start in the second chain from our hook, by adding 1 single crochet stitch. So we never count the loop that's on our hook, so we're going to count 1, 2, and then go through, yarn under and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. And then we're just going to continue adding 1 single crochet stitch to each one of these chain stitches all the way down this foundation chain that we've made. Alright, so here's my last single crochet stitch, just going into that slip knot that we tied to start our foundation chain. And then before we turn our work, we need to chain 2 stitches. And then we're going to flip our work over. So I like to think about flipping it so that what I've crocheted kind of swings around. And now I'm looking at it so that it's upside down, sort of. And then from here, we're ready to move on to round 2. And we're going to be adding 2 double crochet stitches to each stitch here. So we're going to skip over the first stitch of our row. If you look, that's the one that the chain's coming out of. And then we're going to be double crocheting in each of the single crochet stitches that we made from the last row. So to make our double crochet stitch, we're going to start by taking our hook and sort of clockwise wrapping it around. And then holding that wrap we've made, we're going to go through our second, technically, stitch of the row. Then from here we're going to yarn under and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2 of the loops on our hook, then yarn over and draw through the 2 remaining loops on our hook. So we need to add another double crochet stitch in that same place. So again, wrapping around, going through that same spot, yarning under and drawing up a loop, yarning over and drawing through 2, drawing through 2. So we're going to continue adding 2 double crochet stitches to each of these stitches all the way down for row 2. Alright, so here's my last double crochet stitch here for round 2. I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 stitches and then turn my work again. And we're ready for round 3. We're making 1 half double crochet stitch in each stitch. So just like before, we're skipping over the first technical stitch of the round because our chain's going to count as that stitch. So we're going to start by, again, wrapping our yarn around our hook, going through the second stitch in our row, yarning under and drawing up a loop. And then from here, a half double crochet, we're just going to yarn over and draw through all 3. So we're going to keep adding 1 half double crochet stitch to each of the double crochet stitches we made last round. Alright, so here's my last half double crochet stitch. And just like I did before, I'm going to chain, but I'm only chaining 1 stitch this time, so just 1, then turning my work. And then remember that chain's going to count as our first stitch, so we're skipping over that first one, or at least it feels like we are. And we're just making 1 single crochet stitch for every stitch here in row 4. It's just 1 single crochet stitch. Alright, so there's my last single crochet stitch. And we're actually going to be switching to a new color, but I want to leave a long tail here with this lighter color because we're going to use it to sew the mane onto the head. So I'm going to leave a really long tail with this one here, probably 14 inches. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through that last stitch and keep pulling until that tail passes through too, and then tighten it down. So I'm going to use this to attach the mane on, but we still have 1 round left to go. We're going to be working with our color B and adding a We're going to be working in color B and adding a nice darker purple detail along the outside here. So let's go ahead and flip our work over, and then we're going to put our hook through the first stitch where this tail's kind of hanging out, and attach on with our B color, which is this darker purple for me. And then I'm going to be making it so that I can pinch it into a little loop here, put it on my crochet hook, and then pull it through. And then I'm going to take the tail here, the shorter of those 2 ends that I pulled through my hook, and I'm going to use it and I'm going to pull through that loop that I've pulled through my first single crochet over here, through, and then tighten it down. That gets me fastened on to my work, and I'm going to go through that same stitch again, and then pull up a loop here with my longer tail that's still attached to my ball. Then I need to chain 1, and then we're ready to start in on row 5 with this darker color. We're going to be making 1 double crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across, and I'm going to be weaving the tail in that I used to fasten this darker color as I go. So I'm wrapping around, going through my next stitch, and then laying that tail over my hook and making my double crochet stitch. And I'm just going to keep working across, working that tail in as I go too, adding this darker purple ridge to the mane until I am all the way across and on the other side. Alright, so that was that last double crochet stitch here on the last row. So I'm going to go ahead and fasten off. I'm going to cut a short tail with this darker purple here, and then yarn over and draw it through, and then tighten it down. And then I need to weave this darker colored tail in, and I'm going to be using the lighter colored tail that I left attached over here on the other side. So we've got a few tails to weave in actually. Let's start with this darker colored purple tail. And to weave it in, we're just going to sew it through some of the stitches here on the mane. So I'm going to sew this first kind of up and through that last stitch. And then I'm just going to run it through the insides of some of those double crochet stitches on the last row of the mane. So I've sewed it through a couple of these stitches to weave it in. Then I can unthread my needle and trim, which gets that end woven in. Let's also weave in the end from our slip knot. Do the exact same thing we just did. Thread it through our needle and send it through some of the fabric of our work. And then just give it a tug and then trim. Alright, and then that just leaves us with this end here that we're going to use to attach to the neck of our Triceratops. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this through. And I left this color because it's the same color as the head and body, and I find it's easier to hide the stitches if you're sewing with the same color. So I'm going to first send this down the side. I want it to be even with that chain that we started with. So I'm just going to sew back and forth through some of the fabric here at the side of the mane until I'm in through that chain. There we go. And then we are ready to get it attached to the head. And it's going to just sit along the neck here. So I'm going to lay it flat like so as I sew, and then we can reposition it and sort of shape it more into the mane once we're done. So start by kind of like wrapping it around right where the head and the neck meet, and then we're just going to send one stitch into the fabric of the mane and through the head, and just sew our way across that chain that we made to start. So just sew through each one of those chain stitches. Alright, so I've sewn it all the way across, and I am ready to tie a knot and get this secured. So I'm going to be sewing into the fabric of the body for this section. So make sure your tail that you've been sewing with is coming up out of the body. And we're just going to tie another surface knot. And then get this woven in by sending it into the body. And I'm going to secure mine a couple extra times. Then we can trim. Right, and then we can sort of shape this mane a little bit so that it kind of rolls and makes the mane of our Triceratops. just like so. Alright, so there's the mane attached. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part of the pattern. Alright, so the last thing we need to make are the legs. We need to make 4 of them, so we're going to be working with color A. I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then you'll need to make 3 more, and we'll get them attached together. So starting with another magic ring. Alright, so there's that magic ring formed. And we're ready for round 1. We're going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, there are those 6 single crochet stitches. You can pull the tail to close off round 1. Ready for round 2, parentheses pattern here, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, then 1 increase. And we'll do that 2 more times, so 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, and 1 last time. Alright, and then rounds 3 and 4, just 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 9 stitches we just made. Alright, so I finished rounds 3 and 4, and I'm ready to fasten the leg off. I'm going to slip stitch to that next stitch of my round and leave a long tail to sew with. And go ahead and pull that last stitch until the tail I cut passes through and tighten it down. And then give this magic ring a trim. There is 1 of the legs done. We need to make 3 more like I mentioned at the beginning of this section, and then we can get them attached to the body. Alright, so I have all 4 of my legs made and I'm ready to get them attached. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my Triceratops over here, and our legs are going to be kind of positioned so that they're along the outsides of our body. So you can use straight pins here to help keep your legs positioned where you'd like, but they're going to kind of just be arranged along the outside edge of the body here on the underside. So they're going to be positioned sort of like this, and then to attach them on, we're going to just sew through, just like we've done with all of the pieces we've attached, we're going to sew through 1 stitch on that last round and through the fabric of the body to secure. So I'll sew on one of the legs here. Got it positioned. I'm going to come up through some of the fabric of the body and that last round, one of those stitches, and we're just going to sew our way around, securing this leg to the body. Alright, so there's that first leg attached, and I need to secure all those stitches by tying another surface knot. And then weaving that tail in and trimming. Alright, so there's 1 leg attached. We need to repeat with the 3 remaining legs to wrap up this pattern. Alright, so I have all 4 of the legs sewn on, and with that, that wraps up Tina the Triceratops' tutorial.